Welcome to the Rock Music Alliance interview sessions. I'm your host, Cole Coleman, along with keyboardist Claudio Pesavento from Mahogany Rush and the Chris Squire Band. On our show today, Gary Boatner, an audio engineer in both music and movie industries, whose credits include Santana, Blondie, Herbie Hancock, and more, and whose film TV credits include Scandal, Medium, Charmed, and Station 19, and many, many more. Also on our show today is Victor Janacua, also an audio engineer with lots of credits to his name in the music industry, including REM, Incubus, Juliana Hatfield, and more. Gary and Victor are here to tell us today about a big project they've started, a documentary about the world-renowned EastWest Studios. Welcome to our show, Gary and Victor.
Hello.
Hey,
Thanks for coming on here, guys. So, Gary, why is EastWest Studios so special that a documentary needs to be done about it?
so it's not about the studio East West. It's about the two buildings that were built by Bill Putnam Sr., who's the father of modern recorded sound. And there's two buildings. Originally, one was Western, one was United Recording, became United Western Recording eventually, then became Cello and Ocean Way, and then both Ocean Way, and then United Recording, and now East West. And East West is just still cooking, you know. It's 65 years, 65, 66 years of music history, unlike no other place. I mean, from the 50s and still going.
It's an amazing history. It's an amazing place. That's for sure. Whereabouts in the production of the documentary are you guys?
We're
Right
just
now we're in the beginning stages. We're in the focus of getting all the funds and all the legal stuff together. But basically, between Gary and I, we have 50 years of history put together. I worked in the studio for 34 years, so I got to see lots of incredible music, much as Gary has. So the story's already kind of been written already. It's just getting all the preliminary stuff. We're about to hit a big swing right now and getting the whole amazing team together.
Gotcha. Yeah. And have you been able to line up interviews already for the show?
Yes, we have some great people actually. We have some people from the wrecking crew, past studio managers, talent, as well as some incredible producer engineers that have incredible stories to this incredible legacy of the studios.
Yeah,
and the Beach Boys are just waiting for us to give them a trailer. Victor's got people that are ready to go when we all line up, because they're scheduling with artists. So, we got to work around all that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, can you guys have a short list of some of the amazing artists who have recorded there you could tell us about real quick?
I
Oh,
do.
geez.
You mentioned Beach
Fasten your
Boys. Yeah.
seatbelt. Well, I'll go first, I guess, and then Garrett can go. So like I said, I worked there for 34 years. So I started working there in the 80s, and when I got there, it was Barbara Streisand, Barry Manilow, AC/DC, Paul McCartney, and then let's move forward to today. To my last tenure, I worked with Kendrick Lamar, Paramore, Beck. We had Chili Peppers. I mean, the list is absolutely incredible. But before our legacy even started, it was already an incredible cathedral of sound. We had Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Ella Fitzgerald, Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, you name it. This empire of buildings created the most incredible soundtracks of everyone's lives. Gary?
Yeah, I've got Bill Putnam was such a legendary engineer, producer, everything, inventor. He's did so many things, and he hired me out of high school, and I got to work on Frank Sinatra sessions and Bing Crosby sessions because of him. But it's just this is our list. I'll
That's a
read
big
a
list.
few. It says Elton John, Michael Jackson, Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, Elvis Presley, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, Kendrick Lamar, Blondie, Van Halen, Frank Sinatra, Lionel Richie, Merle Haggard. I mean, it just goes on.
I
Stevie
know.
Nicks, it just goes on. Everybody on this list is
And
a
that's edited,
big
by the
time
way.
artist.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really edited.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
That's
we,
just
we
the
had to
top
scale
two
it down
lines.
to like one little chunk.
Yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha. I mean,
I
obviously, it would be amazing to hear those guys talk about their recording experiences there. Yeah, Claudio.
no, my list is all the places that I make coffee for the recording studios.
is that your list?
It's a long list.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Well,
See you
is there
tonight.
is there a way that you could express like why so many people would want to come to this facility to record? I mean, they're coming from across the country, they're coming from other
World,
countries.
actually.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bill Putnam. Gary, fill us in about Bill Putnam and his significance in the history of the studios.
Well, Bill Putnam is he's he's created he invented he had a studio in Chicago called Universal Recording Corporation. Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, right, asked him and said, if you build a studio in Hollywood, we'll keep it busy forever. And they did. Rat Pack, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, everybody from the 50s. Ricky Nelson did all his records there, and that was my first session was I was being a janitor and standing outside of a studio listening and Ricky comes out, invited me in, talked to my boss, and I got to sit on the rest of the Garden Party album, and that's how I started learning, looking over shoulders. But Bill Putnam, he created speakers. I mean, the top of the line recording speakers, recording equipment, limiters, compressors, and they still use those are the highly, sought after things now. And his son, Bill Jr., now owns Universal Audio, and he's created all the digital stuff that his dad made plus more. So it's gone in a couple of generations of genius. You got anything to add to that, Victor?
Yeah, just on the historical side of things, one of the very first sessions that ever happened when Bill Putnam built the studio was Ricky Nelson's Poor Little Fool. And that came out in 1958, 59. And when Billboard first established the Hot 100, that was the very first number one that ever came out. And that came out of that studio right to the Billboard Hot 100.
And then when he built the second studio, Western, which was Western then, the very first recording session they did there was Petula Clark's My Love, and that went number one.
Yeah.
So just the
like
energy of the place,
Yeah.
it's an amazing place to just walk in. You feel, I've had musicians tell me, you know why I did my record here? He goes, it wasn't just so I could record at these studios. It was so I could leave my energy with
Yeah.
all of these people's energy that came along. So
Yeah.
it's intense,
And
and it
it's
still looks
just
the same.
that saying that has reached all, like, till today. People still say that, because they say the studio is not as popular as, say, a Sunset Sound or Capitol, but the people who know. No, I think that's why the documentary is so important, because we need to tell the story of this beautiful legacy of these two incredible studios that transformed the recording industry, not only just on the technical side of things, but how it revolutionized music machine, how it just became this incredible uh, amount of artists from all spectrums. So now we're not even touching all the scoring for all the movies that they've done there, which is absolutely profound, of all the movies that were done, and including, we've done the Oscars every year for numerous years, where we do all the pre-records. Sometimes we do live from the studio. So, and not to mention the incredible, crazy ass stories that come out of recording sessions. Some are a little taboo to say, but yeah, but some we will share.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I think it's interesting. Like a guy like me and a lot of musicians out there may not have really caught that, but it's the Bill Putnam's legacy is the Universal brand, Universal Universal Audio. So
Yeah.
I mean, like everyone I know who records, they're always after Universal Audio plugins.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting to know this is where it comes from. This is where it came from. Bill Putnam and Bill Putnam's son and the studio here. It's an important thing. You can definitely see where this documentary would have extreme interest for the industry. That's for sure. And for the public in general, it's got to be about the stars, right? About all the stars that had been there, from Paul McCartney through.
Think about the song, how powerful a song is, and we're looking at songs from 1958 to today, and just how much people get touched by all that, and that's what the driver, that's what the footprint's going to be, and we're going to let the music kind of just spread its wings, and all the rest will follow: the history, the technology, and then the great stories that happen in the studios.
And I guarantee that you could go through all the music that's been done here, and there's going to be a song in everybody's life that came out of this room, these rooms.
Right.
There's probably, when I was there was 6 rooms in the 2 buildings, and then it's rearranged itself now, with East West and all that stuff, but it's everybody, I mean, they did cartoons, they did the Flintstones and the Jetsons, and I mean, they did all those theme songs and just amazing stories, and a lot of our documentaries are also going to be talking to crew members and people who've worked there, that spent their lives there, and
Are you
did.
Are you gonna interview Candice?
Yeah.
Yes.
How can we not interview Candice?
Big part of the story.
How long she's been there?
Well, for a while, because remember, she worked there when Cello came to the studio, and then it became East West. So she was part of all that. So I met her back in the 90s when Cello first came up. That was 1988.
So East West was closed for a while, right?
It was, yeah. It was closed for a while. So after Cello closed, there was like a 2-4 year period where the studio was we didn't know. And then until Doug Rogers came in and saved it and became East West. And now it's the epicenter of the recording industry. I mean, it really is, it's incredible what all the acts are coming out of there. It's really amazing.
Yeah, a moment ago, you guys were talking about Candice, or Candy. That's Candice Stewart. She's the studio manager. Last time I heard.
Right.
So that would be obviously definitely a person you want to be interviewing. So the studio is back open, and it's been operating for quite a while, right? Mm-hmm. Still,
yeah.
So
they're smoking all the time. I mean, for me to just go there and look, I have to come early because they're busy. They're always busy. I mean, the Stones were there working one time, booked the whole building, so it's a big building. I mean, I've sat on the steps going up to the bathroom with Little Richard back in the early 70s while he told me stories for 2 hours. He told me stories about Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger and John Lennon being his valets, and and I was like a big fan of Little Richard. I thought he was the king of rock and roll, I mean, really, but there's the people that just wandered around the hallways. Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys did almost all their records in Studio 3. And that sign, the sign that's above my bed, that's the original sign from Studio 3 where the Beach Boys did their records, the Mamas and the Papas, the Fifth Dimension, the Grassroots, all those bands came there. And were there. They mingled in each other's studios, So the stories that I got from in there were like from Chuck Britz, who was the Beach Boys engineer, they'd be sitting there doing a Beach Boys session. Here comes Paul and John, and Mick Jagger, and then they'd go to some club and take over a band and start playing, and then they'd get kicked out because people found out about it and would show up and it was a riot, I mean, the stories are crazy, I mean, some of them are good and some of them not so good, but they're all interesting.
Yeah.
They all are what they are.
You were at the Village Studios before?
No, I was never at. This was the only studios I've ever been. Well, I was at Devonshire afterwards when Ozzy did his No More Tears album, but I was there for 5 years after I left United Western Studios. Mm-hmm. Those are the only studios I ever worked in as far as audio recording.
Let's take a short break to hear a word from our sponsor. When we come back, you can finish on that thought. And Victor, we're going to ask you about how you got started as an audio engineer, and how in the world are you guys going to fund this big documentary? All right, we'll be right back on the Rock Music Alliance. Attention guitar players, the Thimble slide allows you to slide and fret, freeing your slide finger. The Thimble slide is a mini guitar slide designed to be worn on the tip of your finger, about halfway down your fingernail. When worn there, you can still bend your finger, and most importantly, it's allowing enough of your fingertip through so you can still press the guitar strings. With its patented shape, you can slide and fret while wearing the Thimble Slide. Visit thimbleslide.com. That's thimbleslide.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie Darrell from the Top 10 Revealed, and you're listening to Rock Music Alliance. Arr!
We're back with Gary Boatner and Victor Janacua on the Rock Music Alliance. Yeah. So you were just mentioning the studios you were working in, Gary. What was the last one you mentioned?
Devonshire Studios.
Devonshire. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That's a name I haven't heard in
Yeah, they did a lot of records there when I was there too. I mean, they did. I kicked Nirvana out of the studio before and everybody even knew who Nirvana was because they were damaging stuff, and the guy who owned it was an Italian, Mancini, and he said throw them out, and I didn't know for years who Nirvana. Well, I didn't know who they were. They were nobody at the time, And then I went, oh.
It's interesting
I had
that
a
way.
job.
Yeah, that's always interesting because once they become famous as stars, we tend to enshrine them and we picture them being cool all the time, But they were just some of the bands were just punks like everybody else.
Sometimes you forget that they're just people like all of us. Sometimes they have really bad days. Sometimes they're sick. Sometimes they're very egotistical, but sometimes they're full of heart and human like all of us.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times Gary and I could share. I mean, how many times we've gone so close to an artist because think about it, as like my engineer background, when you're in a room with somebody for 12 hours every day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, you get close, and then you get to see the softness, the humanity behind the guitar, right? And so yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, when we were doing the Blondie album, I was assistant engineering for Lenise Bant. And when we were doing the Blondie album, we started in the United building. And I would sit in the lobby because Mike Chapman, who was the producer for the Knack and everybody else in the world, he'd just do everything himself most of the time, So I sit in there with Deborah Harry watching General Hospital in the lobby while she's got her robe and her curlers and her hair, sitting there for a long time waiting for her turn, So there's busy moments, and then there's moments where with Herbie Hancock where it was such a long session, it was so dark in the room, I actually fell asleep at the switch, and nobody knew because they were all wearing sunglasses, and so was I. And I still have my foot tapping when he goes, "Hey, Gary," and I went, "Yeah." So your whole life is more than your family. You miss out on family things. You miss out on personal relationships. I mean, there was a long time where I told some women that I would not be a good boyfriend because I'm never home. And I'm sure Victor's done the same.
Yeah. So Victor, how did you get started as an audio engineer?
So I went to recording engineering school. There was only like one or two back in the 80s in Hollywood, and the class started with like 30 people, and I think it was only like 6 of us at the end. The ones that really, and out of those, I think only 2 or 3 of us actually got careers in the industry. I was very fortunate. One of my buddies got a job as a runner at Ocean Way, and this is back in the 80s. And then there was an open door, and the opportunity came, and I got a job at being a runner, cleaning toilets, getting food. And my very first day, and I was so nervous because I didn't know, like, look, what they teach you in school is one thing, but when you're in real world recording studio, then it's like, oh shoot, there's Bob Dylan walking next to me, and so. But became like every day you saw big celebrity, and it just became the norm. My very first day, I had to grab a sandwich for Barry White, and I went to grab a sandwich, and
Right on, baby.
I could hear the music. And, I don't know what to do. So I opened the door and I went to leave the sandwich right next to him. And as I did that, I could hear a voice behind me say, "Hey, where's my love walrus?" And it was George Clinton. And they saw each other and they're about to embrace and hug each other. But I was right in the middle. So I, with the sandwich in hand, so I had to dodge my way out of there and escape. But I did it in one piece. So that was my very first date. After that, I was just
I met his wife at the Rainbow one time and said, "Hey, young boy, you play music?" "Yeah, I do." And then she said, "Well, maybe I can be able to help you." It was a big black mama. The nails were
yeah,
like this long, and they
yeah.
have all diamonds and whatever, on the nails. And she was the wife of
Very white.
yeah, Barry White. Yeah.
And what happened?
You know, she was very nice, but I didn't took it seriously. It's because I was more like into rock music at that time, but
Yeah,
I could be a good influence. He can scratch my back with the nails. But
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of personal stories that go in. There's a lot involved in it because we're going to do a podcast also about the same thing. We haven't worked that out yet because we're still trying to work out the documentary. But our personal lives, there's stories that we probably won't be able to tell, only because there's a bit of a code, that you gotta kind of
You got to honor
be
that.
cool. It's
Yeah.
our whole lives. It's been 52
Yeah.
years for me of honoring a code of if I tell somebody about somebody famous, it would be at my mom's house or something, where nobody that was connected to
well,
it.
you had to write the book before you die, so nobody
Yeah,
kill
exactly.
you. So nobody kill you.
Yeah.
No,
Release it
no.
afterwards.
A lot of guys, they stick by that code. And a friend of mine, Scotty Ross, who's a road manager with Journey and the Doobie Bros and all that stuff. I was at his house one time and I said, "You should write a book." And he goes, "No, I can't, man. I can't tell everything." And I go, "But your wife can when you're not here. Leave the stuff, It's money. They're amazing stories he's got. So you could do that stuff. With us, we don't want it to tarnish what we're doing.
I
You
have
know
a
what
lot
I
of
mean?
stories. I can tell you one that it's gonna make you think about it. But when I was in Montreal. They were doing the Aldo Nova album with John Bon Jovi. He was doing producing. So a certain time of the day, I'm not gonna tell the name that called, but they called like 15 girls, escorts, And I went to open the door and I see my ex-girlfriend.
Oh no.
Oh man. Ouch.
She was ruined after you.
You have to make some. You have to make some money.
Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah, that's a good story. But if I tell you the names,
Yeah,
you-
that's okay.
I tell you the names later in private. But
Yeah,
See
exactly.
you tonight.
Keep to the
See you at the
code.
whiskey.
Keep to the code.
yeah, the whiskey. Yeah, exactly.
So, Victor, what studios are you currently working with?
Well, what I did is, I'll tell you, when I worked like I said, I worked at United Ocean Wave for 24 years, and I worked at all the satellite studios as well. I spent 10 years at Record One, another studio here in Sherman Oaks, and I was there with Dr. Dre for about 10 years. Then because I shifted from engineering to management because I needed to have like a normal life, because as an engineer, you're just nonstop, and I did so many records back to back, that there was like no pause. It was just like nonstop. One of the records I did was MTV's with Nirvana's Unplugged, and that record was so intense because Kurt had just died, and we had not listened to that record. No, the band had come to help us mix it, by the way. So we were all there, and I just put up the faders, and there was this silence, and you can tell that, wow, something really amazing is about to happen. And then we mixed the record probably in a month, and then it was released. And then, those are the kind of amazing experience that happens when you're in the studio. So I was there for, like I said, 34 years. And then, unfortunately, they closed the doors at United in 2023. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah,
it wasn't
not
open to the
me,
public.
but yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a lot of politics that happened with that. They'll probably a deeper discussion some other time.
Do
But
the pandemic have to do with it or not?
nothing to do with that. No, there's new investors came in that were the owners of the property, and they just decided they wanted to build a building in its place instead of it. So luckily, the building's still there. They have some tenants in there, but they're not fully functioning like the studio was back in its heyday, unfortunately.
And
Gotcha.
and the building itself before the studios, as Victor can tell you more, was originally like what, one of the first film stages in Hollywood, right? Something like
Right.
that.
The building actually dates back to 1918. It was a production office for CBC Productions, which is Cohen Brant Cohen, as in Harry Cohen from Columbia Pictures. That was his original first soundstage that he built. On Sunset Boulevard, that area was called Poverty Row, is where all these like small production silent film were being done in that area. And but he saw an opportunity to grow his company, which became Columbia Pictures, and he ended up buying the whole lot. The Sunset Gower Studios, what we see today, is the original Columbia Pictures studio lot. And so many amazing movies were done there, and TV shows like The Monkees and Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. But a lot of amazing movies, historical movies were done there as well. So a lot of great history.
Yeah, all over Hollywood. There's all kinds of great history.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are putting together this documentary about the studios, though. It sounds like it's gonna be a very, very fascinating
The
thing.
thing is, a lot of those things are going away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, people are struggling because East West owner Doug Rogers had told me one time that he's been offered 4 times what the place is worth, but he won't sell it. He
Yeah.
said, "I don't care if I don't make a dime. I'm not going to sell this to somebody to tear it down. It's a history, I mean, the history
Yeah,
in the building itself,
yeah.
is, you
So
know.
so when you do get the documentary finished, will it be airing on a network like Access, or how will people find it?
Well, I think we're going to the way it's going to develop. We're still figuring it out, like if it's going to be a Netflix thing or if it's going to be a full release in the theaters thing. Because there's so much content, there's so much history to put in. Right now, we're looking at a 3-part kind of situation where it could be a Netflix thing. So, but we're going to leave it at the hands of the director right now. So, we're compiling, we're putting all this together. The script is already written, but we're going to see. It all depends.
Do you have a lot of footage from people recording stuff like that? No.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Video?
there's
Yeah.
there's incredible stuff. That
Mm.
there's an amazing in 1965 Frank Sinatra recorded. It was a very good year, and he happened to have a camera crew in the studio, and he was the one take master. And you see the dynamics between him and the engineer, and then the full orchestra, and we had the ladies on the side and the cart of whiskey ready to go. And typical Frank, okay, let's do it. 5, 6, 7, 8, bam. The guy better be hitting record. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
So stuff like
Amazing.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
it was incredible.
I mean,
I gotta say, a Frank Sinatra session, just because I worked on a few of them, was probably, when people ask me, was probably he was the most forceful person. I don't mean in a tough way. I mean, you felt him come in the room when you didn't even see him come in the room.
Yeah, presence.
Seasoned musicians, 80-piece orchestras that would be playing hard, smoking the whole time. All of a sudden, you just hear everything just go like this. And I knew he was behind me.
how you get rid of the smoke?
Well, they don't
It was
smoke.
the
If it's a Frank
60s.
Sinatra session, nobody's smoking then. I mean, maybe back in the 50s and stuff, because he would bring in a bar, but
Well,
you had to be
well,
invited
I
to
was
it.
I was watching Johnny Carson, and everybody smokes and drink in that show.
Oh yeah, back then
It was
Everybody
normal. In
everybody's
the
wasted.
80s.
Everybody was wasted.
Yeah.
they used to smoke it. They used to smoke in the studios too, but now I don't think they do that as much.
Dean Martin, no, he never showed up sober.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was quick. They were quick. They come in the studio and do 3 songs in 3 hours, and it wasn't like wasting time. I mean, you came in, you worked, and you left. And if anything goes wrong, you were prepared for it. I had a busy day, when it was with guys like that, And then Bing Crosby was the opposite. He was a little
Oh,
mellow. came up and signed a picture for me, was just a mellow, nice guy, but, working with Bill Putnam was probably what I would say was my career changing moment. I cleaned his carpet, and he said, well, you want a job? You did a good job. And I said, sure. What do you do? I have a little studio. And then when I got there, I was in high school. And I went, holy crap.
So he said to you, can you clean my mix?
Would never touch that.
Well, you clean the carpet, so can you clean my mix?
He was an amazing guy. I mean, the stories about just him and his son, what they've done, are just amazing things, stuff people don't even know. I mean, he told me he created the president of the United States one time back in the 50s or something, asked him to create something to can tell because they were having all the world leaders were coming to the White House. And they were afraid somebody was going to try to blow it up or shoot somebody. So they asked him, could he invent something to check people out? And he invented a metal detector. And so he doesn't have the credit today for the metal detectors because
Wow.
he was a patriot. So he gave the patents to the United States. And now look, everybody's got a metal detector. Everywhere you go, they're in your face with metal detectors and stuff, even if it's a whiskey.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that man did that if it weren't for him, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, Bill Putnam.
We're
So
grateful.
obviously he's got to be a big part of your video or your documentary.
Yeah, he's going to be a good start of the thing going. And then there's, like Victor said, there's so much to talk about. We can't see doing it in an hour and a half, even 2 hours. I mean, that would just be such a little amount. So
it's like how many times they had the perfect take and you forgot to press record.
Never.
Yeah.
I never did
You're
that.
out of a job.
Yeah, yeah. That's most studios. I think they learn pretty quick that even when somebody says, "Let me practice it for a minute," they hit the record button.
Yeah.
You
always.
got to record the practice
Always hit
session.
record.
But we
Record
got-
that? Well, yep.
There's stories of some people who accidentally erased things and
Sure.
like 20 seconds worth of a whole beginning of a
Oh,
mix.
it must be
I mean,
absolutely
the
awful.
24 track, because they put their record blank tapes on the front of the masters, so they let it go, and he walked out of the room, and it went past through the leader and went right into the song before he got back.
Oh
And the
no.
whole 20 to 30 seconds was gone.
Wow.
They're done. This is it. They're gonna mix. It
Yeah,
was gone.
wow. So guys,
So-
we're coming up to the end of our time. Time for just a couple more questions here. So
Perfect.
in Hollywood, I mean, I've met a handful of people who are working on television shows or things, documentaries, and of course, the big thing is it's a great idea, guys, but are you going to get greenlit, right? You're going to get this thing lit. So how do you guys plan to fund this thing, or do you need funding?
We need funding. We have a lot of access to people that want us to do it. So we really haven't hit them with it until we get all of our ducks in a row, because we want to come in there professionals as we are, So we're not going to walk in there and go, oh yeah, we're going to figure that out next week. There's going to be an answer for everything. There's going to be everything we need to attract them. Like I said, Mike Love from the Beach Boys, he says, I just want to see a trailer, and we'll do it. Because they do so many interviews, but this is pretty important, for them. They did most of their records in there. It's called the Beach Boy Room, and it doesn't have a sign, but everybody calls it that, the Beach Boy Room,
Yeah, that reminds me of RCA Studio B in Nashville.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
the Elvis Presley room, the
Yeah.
Elvis Presley studio. And even though I'm not like a big fan of that genre, I mean, it's always fun. It's always fun to hear that music,
Yeah.
But when you go there, I mean, it is fascinating to see the studio and to picture Elvis there and all the songs he recorded there. So, I mean, I definitely understand. I feel the vibe for this place that your guys are doing a documentary about from that perspective. I mean, it's just would love to go there. We'd love to go
Yeah,
there. And
Elvis,
soak up the vibe.
Elvis did his 68 comeback rehearsals in Studio One for when he did his TV comeback, which resurrected him. But while he was there, the story is Colonel Tom wanted him to do this song, in there, and he didn't want to do it. So he came back the next day and recorded 2 more songs. One was, I believe, A Little Less Conversation, and I believe Memories. which were big, huge records. So I have access to Priscilla and I haven't talked to her yet. We want to wait till everything's copacetic with us, and just tell the stories, I mean, that's Elvis Presley, the Beatles. I played ball with Ringo's kid in the hallway when Zach was this big, rolling balls down the hallway. It's
Well,
just you become oriented as a family.
yeah. Well, I mean, you guys know so many people already. Any one of these stars might have the funding, of course, to greenlight it for you. So you would imagine if you could just get a hold of, you could spread it out and have like 10 or 15 of these guys be your supporters. I'm sure they would understand the importance of doing this video.
I
this
had to say
documentary.
something. I got to say something.
Sure, go ahead.
Maybe rings the bell. Elon Musk.
I don't think he likes me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like we have these wonderful concepts, creators, like ourselves, and but we need people to, help us fund them. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
we have access. We talked about that this morning and yesterday. We interviewed a guy that is going to work with us on that hopefully, and there's things in motion that we can't talk about right now that will allow us to probably get better access to even better people. So we're hoping for that. Do our podcast, see what happens, GoFundMe's or whatever you got to do. It's a lot of money just for licensing.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
Wrecking
boy.
Crew licensing was $1 million.
Wow.
So
I can
as
also
we,
say though, there's incredible amount of interest, not just in the music and studio community, but beyond. Because if you look at Hulu and QB and all the Tubi and all those other channels, Prime, now there's a documentary section, but music documentaries just on its own. And there's definitely an audience for all that. So I think we're gonna play with with let the music sing and just let the footprint be gigantic.
yeah,
Yeah.
I watch it.
Go ahead.
I watch it.
Yeah, all right.
yeah, me too. I'm
We're,
already
we're
like
trying
this
to
sounds
make we're
great.
trying to make something that captures everybody's attention. There's something for everybody. There's learning about working in a studio by talking to crew members like us and other people that we know, and artists. The crews, the vice presidents of the company. The producers. So far, nobody said they're not interested. They all
We got a
know.
lot of yeses.
Yeah, they
That's
all know it's
yeah,
important. They all say, you've got to record this history. You have
yeah.
to.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
true. It's a definitely a worthwhile project. You just need the. It sounds like you already have a lot of the creative structure in place already, so you just need the funding. Sounds like.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we're
Well,
ready to go pretty much. We're just going to build our trailer and get everything. We've got all the legal stuff almost,
so,
there.
so as we get ready to wrap up here, guys, just a couple more quick ones. So it sounds like the very next step for you guys is to produce a trailer.
Right. And that's emotional. Matter of fact, we had a meeting by yesterday, so we have the guy. Hopefully, he's gonna sign on to do it, and he's gonna make a very like movie trailer ready kind of thing. So we're gonna go full swing and make it absolutely incredible because this is gonna be our selling point, and we want it to be like pure but also spectacular as the story we wanted to share.
Yeah, we're not running around with cell phones interviewing people.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
trying to do it, make everybody look good and have a voice,
Yeah.
no matter what you did.
Got it. Got it.
What was your
It's,
life like?
I think it's gonna be great. A lot of people is gonna love this stuff. So
It's going to take a little while, but we'll get it done. We'll keep you
Absolutely.
informed.
Yeah. So Gary, any special moments that you can leave us with now? A special moment from the East West experience?
I was at the United Western experience, which was the first bunch. Yeah, when people ask me about that, like I said, the Frank Sinatra stuff, was amazing to be there listening to someone like him. But I told somebody the other day that Al Schmidt, who is like one of the legendary engineers in the planet, he's passed away now. And I sent something to his wife because it was his birthday. And I said, you know what? when I sat in the studio with Al and the whole orchestra was there and Barbara Streisand was there and the music started going and she started singing and Al was there and I was sitting there, and we did The Way We Were. And it was one of the biggest records I ever worked on, I mean, and I knew from that moment that this is a huge, big deal. I'm never going to forget this day. And I had it. So,
Wow.
yeah, that was cool.
That's
There's a
awesome.
lot of good, cool experiences. We could both tell you things that touched our hearts and build who we were, built our fingerprint of who we are. The producers and the engineers, we took a little bit of each one of them. So none of us are the same. None of us do everything structured like a lot of guys do now because they're working out of Pro Tools at their house or whatever. There's something about being in those rooms, the
Yeah.
sound, the vibe, the vibe from 50 years ago is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go there and check it out myself. Hey, Victor, any special moments you can leave us with about your recording experience there?
God, there's thousands, I'm sure, like Gary, but I'll share like this on the top of my head one. So this is like again, like maybe 1991, 92. I was working on a big score of a movie with some Dennis Hopper was the director of this movie, and he brought in all these incredible musicians. One was Taj Mahal, I remember, this amazing drummer, and we were doing all these takes. And all of a sudden, Dennis says, "Hey, can you set up a mic? We have a special guest coming in." I said, "Okay," and we hear that all the time. It's like no big deal. So I started setting up a microphone, and then all of a sudden, this cloud of patchouli just invades the room. I'm like, "What the hell's going on there?" And I turn around, and it's Miles Davis. And I
Wow.
was like, "Holy mackerel!" So I start pretending like I'm playing dumb. He pulls out his trumpet and he starts warming up right in my earshot, like literally 1 foot away from me. And I'm just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Finally, I get called back into the room. It's okay, let's do a take. Anyways, he does a couple of takes and then he goes, "Hey, I'm hot. I need a towel." So I'm like, "Oh, shoot." So everybody looks at me to go get a towel. They're like, "We don't have any towels." So back in those days, there was a store called Thrifties. So I ran to Thrifties and all they had was like these awful blue summertime beach towels. So I grabbed it, brought it back, and between the takes, I handed him the beach towel, thinking, "My God, he's going to kill me," because he was wearing like these silk pajama kind of pants and this
Yeah.
like crazy outfit. And he puts the towel around him and does like 2 or 3 more takes. And he goes, "Okay." Dennis Hopper goes, "This is great. Thank you very much. This is great, Miles. Thank you so much." And then Miles Davis looks at me and goes, "Here, kid," and gives me the towel. And then I had like that Coca-Cola moment, what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I took the towel and I put it around me. I was like, "I'm never gonna wash this ever again." Anyways, I kept that towel for like decades until like an ex threw it away because I thought it was trash. And fortunately I lost it.
Yeah, it's a great
Crazy.
story, man. It's a great story. Yeah, and I was thinking, and even as you were saying it, I was remembering that Coca-Cola commercial. Like as soon as you said, "Here, kid," so I remember that, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, guys. Well, do you guys have a website together yet? I mean, where can people go to stay in touch and find out more about your documentary?
We have somebody putting it together right now as we speak. So we'll be able to fill that back in as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
Our production company is called Legacy 65
Yeah, Legacy
Productions.
65 Productions.
And anything on social media for people to check out?
Now, yeah, we're going to launch all that very,
Okay.
very soon.
Okay. So one more time, what was that name again? It's
Legacy 65 Productions.
so should they look that up?
Hmm.
Okay, check out Legacy
Yeah,
65.
give us a couple weeks.
Yeah, it'll be coming along. Yeah. And I also want to tell people, anybody listening, East West does have a terrific website out there you can go check out. So visit eastweststudios.com and they have a history page. You can learn, you'll recognize some of the things these guys have been talking about, like, Bill Putnam and the Universal days. So you can go to eastweststudios.com and check out some of the amazing history that they have up there as well. All right. Well, Gary and Victor, thanks for being our guests today on the Rock Music
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
Alliance.
very much.
I'm Cole Coleman, And for Claudio Pesavento, the Rock Music Alliance, and the RMA Awards, thanks for watching and listening. Visit us at rockmusicalliance.com and check out this year's RMA Awards for rock, metal, and progressive rock music.